StarCraft 2 uses, we will try to take advantage of, and a whole bunch of other features as well. The new BattleNet is really awesome. And what it supports is easy communication, easy connection with other players, being able to matchmake, basically do all the things that you would want to do to be able to get online, find your friends, get into games with them quickly, and have a really great time. So, and also just more massive cooperative battles, and game that really focuses and supports that. So obviously on the multiplayer side, I'm just kind of getting into it a little bit. You know, BattleNet, as I said, is not quite ready for prime time, but it's really awesome, and more on that in the coming months. So that gets us into kind of the next big point, which is making Diablo 3 a better action game. So here's a short video. It just shows off some of the different skills that some of the different hero classes use. So this is Witch Doctor using Horrify and Locust Swarm. We had Cleave, which is one of the Barbarian abilities. Is a big sweeping, attack that damages everything in front of them. So it's really been our goal to make just incredibly kick-ass player characters. Just people that, again, you'd really want to play that do awesome stuff. And through that, we felt like we needed to do a lot of improvements to just the core gameplay. Because as I said before, improved controls. We call less spam and more depth. And that's not to say that you won't break some mice playing Diablo 3. You will. It's a mouse killer. But we're trying to get it, not quite as carpal tunnel as Diablo 2. Allow you to, get a greater amount of skill diversity. And a new breed of monster, cooler monster design. So getting into the control improvements, one of the first things we added was the hotbar. So the hotbar really promotes what we call skills over potion use. In Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, the primary focus for kind of getting out of any problem was potions. If you ran into a monster that was really tough, you just smack the potion button until you win. We didn't feel that really makes for incredibly compelling combat. It's kind of a battle of attrition, and that's not the most fun way to play a game. We really wanted the player to use a lot more diverse skills. So what the hotbar does is allows the player to just fire off any number of skills very quickly, and because it occupies the same space that the belt used to occupy, it's not any more complex than the Diablo 2 UI. It's actually a lot easier because now you don't have to use kind of the complex F keys that Diablo 2 did. We don't use those anymore to switch skills because you can access all your skills very easily on the hotbar, and you don't want for kind of a separate skill selection. We also, through the mouse wheel, you can just kind of, or tab key, you could swap between a couple skills on the mouse wheel. So it makes the game, you can still just kind of one skill through it, through the single player game, especially through normal difficulty. That's part of keeping the difficulty curve smooth. But as you get deeper into the game, as you get into harder challenges, you'll want to use kind of a more diverse set of skills, escape skills, attack skills, buffs. All of those things are way easier to use. So it also just is it's a cleaner UI. All the kind of advanced features are right there and available to every player, not just the people who figure out how kind of some of the more arcane functions work. It promotes things like class-specific tactics. Now we can see, previously the answer to a barbarian being overwhelmed by an enemy was potion, and a witch doctor being overwhelmed by an enemy is potion. Now the witch doctor can horrify his enemies, and the barbarian can stun them. The barbarian's tougher than his enemies, so he can just last through a fight, whereas the witch doctor can use pets to distract enemies. It makes for a much more interesting dynamic combat without really pulling away from the Diablo feel. It's still really fast-paced and really easy to get into, and just all about owning a big pile of monsters. And as we say, better gameplay, less carpal tunnel. So one of the next things we did was, if we're going to get rid of the potion belt, and we haven't got rid of potions, they're still there, they're just not nearly as core a part of the game, we really needed a new health system. We experimented with a lot of different ideas along these lines. If those of you are familiar with Halo, we actually tried a Halo kind of shield system with health where it would regen very quickly. That didn't really give us the effect we wanted because it caused players to actually leave combat to try and recover health, and that's really something we never wanted. We always want the player moving forward. We want to keep the pace of the game fast. We also didn't want to adopt anything like a WoW system where after a fight you stop and drink, because again, it slows down the pace of the game. We really view Diablo as an extremely fast-paced, active game. So little to no downtime was one of our main goals. So the great thing about the health globe system is because these are basically objects that drop off of monsters when you kill them, it encourages the player to engage in conflict. If I'm low on health, I want to fight monsters. If I'm high on health, I want to fight monsters. And it promotes something that we call positional gameplay, which is really one of the best kinds of gameplay you can get in the Diablo series. And the idea is that based upon the type of attack you're using, and based upon what kind of character you're playing and where you are and what kind of monster you're fighting, where you are is very important. And what the health globes do is really promote the player to go someplace they don't want to go, which is great gameplay. It's like, I need that thing to get health back, but I got to go get past like 10 monsters to do it. And that's really exciting. So the other thing is that we talked a lot about, like we do with all systems, how does this system interact with cooperative play? There's not a system that goes in the game that we don't talk about cooperative play. And one of the cool things about this system is how we set it up was if you pick up a health globe, any of your friends who are nearby will receive the same benefit you do. And the cool thing about that is that now it's good for you to be near one another. We didn't want, say, the barbarian who's up front to be getting all the health, and the witch doctor in back going, hey man, I'm dying up here. And now the witch doctor is actually, not only is he the cool front man, but he's a de facto healer as well. And same thing, if the witch doctor has access to a health globe, he can actually help out his buddy. And that kind of cool cooperative play is something we really focus on. So the last kind of part of our big action section is monsters and what kind of cool monsters we're going to make and how we're going to improve on them. We really wanted to, certainly Diablo 3 is filled with all kinds of just monsters that swarm and get crushed in large numbers, which is awesome. But we also wanted to create kind of more interesting, more complex monsters. And the Berserker is a great example of this. He's very aggressive, very tough monster. And he's got this kind of massive charged up attack. Whenever he swings his big mace and it gets, that kind of fiery effect on him, if he connects with that, it does just an enormous amount of damage. But the cool thing is if you can pull away from him, then he'll hit the ground and he'll be stuck, and then you've got a few seconds just to pound on him. And the idea is, again, positional gameplay. We want the player to not just walk forward and click madly. We want them to occasionally go, hey, I'm going to step back from this guy and then move back in. That kind of dynamic movement just makes combat way more fun and way more interesting. So the Skeletal Shield Bearer is kind of one of our next one, and the thing we love about this guy is he shows off how monsters can have great synergy with one another. This guy's really slow, but he's also really tough. That shield he has can just absorb a monstrous amount of damage. But the cool thing is that if you can destroy it or subvert it in some way, you can negate it. If you can get that shield down, he's actually not very tough at all. So he tends to accompany ranged units or casters where, those guys will just be pumping mad damage past those shield bearers, and you've got to deal with these guys up front. But the cool thing is if you can do something like like stun them, or otherwise, horrify them. If you do like a fear skill, that shield drops, and then you just one-shot them and they're gone. So really cool creature that is really fun to play against. So the next slide is talks about better role-playing game. So this is kind of our last big kind of thing that we're talking about today, and one of the things we really wanted to focus on with the Diablo series. So the idea was we really wanted to improve the story, make a better story, but not lose the feeling that Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 had, and other games that we've made like World of Warcraft have, where the story is kind of an opt-in. If you are not interested in the story, we're not going to subject you to like giant dialogue trees or mountains of text. You can go up, tap your quest giver and get going and have a great time. But if you are interested in the story, then it's there for you. We wanted to really improve the feeling that as you move through the world has a focus. There's a lot going on in it. It's not just kind of a container for monsters.